Hello, and welcome to Werner's Whirligigs. I'm Werner, and we have a special guest with us for the next couple of episodes. This is Sam. This is my mother-in-law's 1954 Chevy half-ton 3100 pickup truck. And Sam has actually been over here for the past couple of months, and we'll get into those details a little bit later in the video. But what I'll tell you now is that Sam wouldn't start, and it came down to some ignition problems. So we're going to troubleshoot those and implement some repairs and get him back on the road. I want you all to remember that I'm just another yokel who's not educated nor a professional in what I'm doing here, and it's possible that if you rely on this video, you, your project, or the both of you might end up as a smoldering hunk of hammered dog shit. Please use common sense, be careful, and always protect your ears, eyes, face, body, and hands when doing this type of work. With that, let's keep on trucking. This video may contain peanuts. Today we're going to be working on Sam. Sam is my mother-in-law's 1954 Chevy truck, which she's had for 30 years now. And Sam is named after her dad, Papa Sam, who used to have a very similar truck when he was a vegetable peddler in Chicago in the 50s. Sam is a guest here right now and also a refuge from the wildfires here in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law lost her house last week, and I love it. She had a choice whether to take Sam or to take her new Mini Cooper or Mini Clubman car. And she drove Sam out of the fire, which I just thought was so cool. Anyway, there's a little bit of a backstory just even in the last week. So she drove him to our house, and she parked him in our driveway. We have a single lane driveway, and the very next day, we got evacuated. When we went to go evacuate that night around 6:30, Sam wouldn't start. He was parked at the end of our driveway. So we had to push Sam out onto the street, and we left him there. What else can you do? We couldn't push him back. We didn't want to push him back into the driveway because maybe our house would burn down and catch him on fire. So we pushed Sam out into the street. He wouldn't start. We left. I came back at 3 in the morning when they lifted the evacuation, and he was still there. Great. I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning and went out to the street to check out and see what might be causing him to not start. And would you believe it? Somebody tried to steal this truck just in that overnight when, during the wildfires. Actually, it really pissed me off. I got into the car, or into the truck, and found the ignition hanging from its wires under the truck, under the dashboard. They had removed the tumbler for where the key goes, and yeah, it was just hanging there. So anyway, now I've got two jobs. I need to figure out why the truck would not start initially for us, and I also need to replace the tumbler and put the ignition back together in the dash. So that's what this video is going to be about. This truck has been updated to have a 12-volt ignition, and it's also now an electronic ignition. So the points have been replaced with an Ignitor from Petronix, and then we also have a aftermarket coil. Interestingly, I looked at this earlier, and it says that it's a 6-volt coil. I've done a lot of reading, and I don't know, it's a little bit confusing. Anyway, first thing we're going to do is pull the coil off and just take it to my workbench and test it. And then after we do that, we're going to test the igniter that's sitting inside of the distributor in situ, or in place. maybe. I don't know, maybe we'll take it off. When I open it back up and take a peek, I'll figure out which direction I want to go. So you can see there, 6 volt, no external resistor required. Now that external resistor potentially can have something to do with the points and not overloading the points. But I'm not sure why you would have a 6 volt coil on a 12 volt system. There might be a reason, but it's not clear to me yet. Doing a little homework, I figured out that this is either a Napa IC7 coil or a BWD E5 coil. And I swear I have crawled all over the internet and I cannot find specs for the secondary windings. So these are the primary windings between this, and this is the secondary winding in here. So we'll just take some readings here and see what we come up with first, and then I'll write that down and then I'll do some more research. So I'm just checking to make sure this zeroes out. It does. Okay, so the resistance on the primary windings, get the cable out of the way, is 1.1 ohms. Now, just going off what I know, that seems to be roughly within spec. And then for the secondary coil, you go between the positive and the secondary coil, and we get 571.2 ohms. That seems like an order of magnitude too low. I'm not exactly sure what it would be, but I would be expecting something maybe in the 5 to 10,000 range. So just that right there makes me think that this coil might be bad. All right, now we're going to check the Pictronics igniter in this. I've taken the cap off of the distributor here, set it aside, and this piece we're looking at down here is the igniter, this black little thing. And there's a magnet that spins on here. When the magnet goes in front of this little black box, it sends a signal to the coil to fire. Basically you're replacing the points on the vehicle. And so in order to test that, we have to simulate the car running, or the truck. So the first thing we need to do is hook up a ground, which I just put on here, from the base plate, and this wire runs all the way back to the negative terminal on the battery. You can when you're doing it in your car, you can disconnect the wires from the battery, the two main leads, and just run wires separately like this, small wires from the battery to the igniter. The next thing that I want you to notice is the black and the red wire starting down here from the igniter down in the distributor that exits through the side of the distributor. There's two wires, not just one. It's a black and a red. There you can see it. And winds up to here. And again, you look at the ends, there's a black wire and there's a red wire. So to continue with troubleshooting this igniter, we're going to hook up some more wires. I replaced the leads on my multimeter with some hooks. So we're going to hook up the negative lead to the black wire on the lead coming from the igniter, and we're going to hook up the red lead on the multimeter to the red wire coming from the igniter. And we also are going to make sure that these don't touch. So here they are. They are not hooked up to a hot lead yet, so it doesn't matter at the moment if they touch. And the last thing we're going to do is connect a hot lead from the battery to the red lead here, where the positive lead on the multimeter is connected. But just for clarity, the negative lead goes from the bracket where the igniter is to the negative battery terminal. The positive lead from the battery terminal goes to the red lead on the igniter. The red lead from the meter also goes to the red lead on the igniter, and the negative lead from the multimeter goes to the black lead from the Petronix igniter. And now that we have everything set up, when we turn on the multimeter and set it to the volt setting, DC volts, we're going to look for 12 volts or battery voltage, so it might be more or less than 12 from reading on the multimeter. Okay, so far this means that this is working. Now there are a couple of ways that you can test this to make sure it works as the engine turns over and that it's sending spark. You can turn over the engine, have somebody turn over the engine and watch the multimeter and see if it changes. The testing procedure says that it should drop to less than 1 volt when the magnet passes in front of the igniter, and that would then tell us that it's working. Whenever you want. Yep. Okay. A different way to do it is that you can also run a magnet like this in front of the igniter or on top of the igniter. So let's try that. We're going to run a magnet on top of the igniter. Oop. There we go. So see, it's dropping down to 0.01 volts. Let's move it away. I'm wondering if I'm doing the wrong thing. I would expect that when I wave the magnet over the igniter, it would drop from 12 volts down to less than 1 volt. But it almost seems to be doing the opposite. So now the magnet's over the igniter and it's saying 12 volts. Now I'm moving the magnet away and it's dropping down to 0.01. Magnet on top, 12. Magnet away, down to 0.15. That's the opposite of what I would expect to happen, but maybe I'm missing something. Well, we'll keep going and see what happens when we put in the new coil and see if we can get it started. The new replacement coil came in the mail yesterday. It's on the left. It's a flamethrower from Petronix, and I think it's 40, model number is 4511, or that's some kind of number associated with it. And it's sitting next to the 6-volt coil that was in the truck. The one on the left is a 12-volt coil. I thought about it a little bit more, and I think I understand now why there was a 6-volt coil in the truck. Back last May, I did a full tune-up on this truck. I was here for weeks. It was a lot of fun. It was before I was doing YouTube videos. And one of the things that we decided to do was repaint the driver's side front fender, because 10 or 12 years ago, I think my mother-in-law scraped the garage door frame when she was pulling in or pulling out, and that mark had been there for that long, and it just seemed like a shame after spending so much time cleaning up the truck and getting it back up to snuff to just leave that scrape there. So I took it down the street to a body shop that I use regularly, and they did a beautiful job. When I picked up the truck to leave, I made it 100 feet and it stalled, and I could not get it started again, and it turned out that it was the coil. And these guys helped me just push it back up to their shop. They're an auto body shop and a repair shop, and they just put a new coil in it for me, and I went back the next day or 2 days later to pick it up. And I think they put in a 6-volt coil because that's what would go in this truck normally. And they did not realize it had been updated to a 12-volt coil. It's now time for us to install the coil. And again, this is a 12-volt coil with 3 ohms of resistance because this truck has been updated to a 12-volt system at some point in its life. So we'll slide the coil into its location. We've got a positive and a negative marked terminal here, and we've got some wires that need to go in there. We've got, coming up from the distributor, we've got 2 wires, a red one and a black one, and then also from the ignition, or from the hot lead, we have a red one as well. Well, it's white, but this is the power. So absolutely, power goes on to the positive screw on the coil. And then what do we do with these other 2? Well, let's use some common sense for a second and talk about how this works. So power comes into the coil from this hot lead, and this is the ground side. It leaves through the ground side. These are the primary coils, and this is the secondary coil. This primary coil gets grounded through the points in the distributor. So when the points are closed in the distributor, this circuit is complete, and this can ground to the frame of the vehicle and return to the negative battery. But when these points are open, this can no longer ground, and the electricity here in the coil is looking for a different way to escape and looking for another path of least resistance. And that's the secondary coil, which connects to the distributor. The black is the ground wire that goes down to the distributor so that this can ground when the points are closed. Now, this truck has an electronic ignition. It doesn't have a points ignition, and that's why we have this other red wire here. This red lead is not connected to the coil in any way, really. It's just connected up. Think of it as connected to the hot lead coming out of the ignition. This is to energize Ignitor in the distributor. There's a magnet that spins on the shaft inside of the distributor, and when that magnet crosses by the Ignitor, that's how it tells the coil to fire. That's when it breaks ground over at the coil, and then the coil fires through the secondary lead. Then power comes through this secondary coil, goes down to the distributor, and as the distributor is rotating, it sends the spark to the appropriate spark plug lead, of which there are 6. So that's one way you can remember to hook it up. Then we just need to put on these nuts here. One of these days I'm going to go Godzilla on these dogs next door. Okay, that's it. We're all connected up. Now we're going to go ahead and jump the ignition system. We've got three wires here in the ignition, and just so you know, this is how the kind robbers left it. This is how I found this truck the other day in the street after we were evacuated for the fire. So be sure to disconnect your battery before you do this. This lead here is the main lead coming from the battery, and when you turn the key, it makes a connection to these 2 other leads. There's a lead back here and a lead over here. What we'll do is we'll hook up, we've got 2 leads here. We'll hook up one lead to the one of the 2 wires that need power, and we'll hook up the other lead to the other wire that needs power, and then at the other end of the lead we'll hook them up to the post that already has power coming from the battery. Okay, so in this way, we are now jumping around the switch, the ignition switch, and not using it to direct electron flow. Okay, we have the things, wires clipped in again. I unplugged them temporarily so I wouldn't burn out the coil. I'm going to use the clutch, we're going to use the choke, and theoretically it should start if the coil was the problem, so fingers crossed. Nice. Yeah, he's a cold-blooded truck. It takes a little while for him to warm up, but he does eventually. Don't want to over choke it because it'll go towards fouling the plugs. So sometimes I just let him idle for a little while to warm up before driving. And then, so now that we've got him running, theoretically, if I pull this off, the engine should stop. So let's see what happens. Perfect. Okay, well, that worked. Now we need to replace the key tumbler in here, and we're also going to rekey the door and the glove compartment so that they all operate with one key. We're at the end of this video, and yeah, that wasn't too bad. I enjoyed figuring out the problem with the coil, and I was happy that we didn't need a new igniter for sure, but they are available. So you know, could have always gone to Petronix and bought another if we needed to, but it's nice that the overall cost of this wasn't too expensive. Well, thank you for watching this video, and thank you even more if you've made it this far. Enjoyed your company for this video, and let's see, please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and if you feel like it, subscribe. No pressure at all, but I do release videos on the 1st, the 11th, and the 21st, and you'll see that the topics I cover are far-ranging. I just do projects that need to be done, and I make videos about them. Well, all right. Onward and upward. We'll be back soon on another video for this truck, and we will be replacing all the locks. Until next time, so long for now.